to this SUPboarder video. We're continuing on with our Longboard SUP how-to series. This time we're talking everything about equipment. We're going to be looking at boards and different type of length of board. We're also going to be looking at paddles, the stiffnesses, the paddle length that you need. We're also going to be talking about features such as the fins and the leashes as well. Let's get into it. Now we'll start off by talking about the main part of our equipment, and that is our board. So longboard SUPs, they do come in a variety of lengths, but for it to be classed as a longboard SUP, we're generally looking at boards over 9 feet in length with a rounded nose. You may see some of the competitions nowadays have a 10 feet minimum, so those longboard SUPs 10 feet and over can enter into those divisions if you do have that type of board. We're going to be looking at everything from 9 feet and up with that rounded nose that's classed as a longboard SUP. Finding out which length that's right for you includes a few factors. If you're entering the new longboard competitions, then obviously you're going to go for something that's 10 feet or longer. Make sure you're able to balance on it though, because a few of the performance longboard SUPs coming out from a variety of brands are now producing SUPs that are low in volume. Some of them are under the 100 litre mark. So make sure that you're going to get the right board that's going to suit the kind of conditions you're going to be surfing. If they're smaller, weaker waves, maybe you want to go for a longer board that's going to have a bit more glide to be able to catch those waves a lot easier. If it's a steeper wave or a bit bigger wave, you might want to go that smaller length, but just keep in mind what you're using it for, what you want to be doing, whether you want to be nose riding on it as well. All of these factors are going to contribute to which board you're going to get for your longboard SUP. Getting the right board is crucial to you enjoying your time surfing. There are so many different boards out there now, and we've tested a number of them. Some of the boards have quite a straight outline or parallel rails that generate speed down the line really well and allow for long drawn out turns. They'll generally nose ride a little bit better as the parallel shape of the rail will offer a bit more hold in the wave. But this won't give you a quick maneuverability, as a board with a more curved outline will allow you to turn a bit quicker and give you a bit more all-round performance. It may not be conducive to nose riding though, as the board doesn't have that extended rail to hold in the wave as that parallel shape would have. So make sure you understand what board's going to be right for you. Are you looking to walk the board and nose ride on it a little bit more? Or are you thinking you want to cruise a bit, do some nice flowing turns? Then obviously these factors are going to contribute to which board you buy. Remember, those parallel outlines are going to allow speed down the line, while a more curved outline shape is going to give you that maneuverability and turning speed. Next, let's talk about our paddle lengths and what stiffness of shaft that you may want to go for when riding a longboard SUP. Most of us will opt for a paddle that's about head high in height. It's going to be the most comfortable paddle height for us to use out in the water. It's going to save us from having a paddle that's too long and trying to overextend. Also having a paddle too short where we're leaning over and hurting our back. So I find always that head height paddle length is going to be really comfortable for us to use in the water when we are paddling, as this is also going to allow you to cross the paddle over your board without too much problem when switching sides. A paddle that's head height as well is going to allow you to do short bursts if you need them, and you won't be hurting your back too much compared to a short paddle or that overextension with a longer paddle. Remember though, if your board is low on volume, you may want a shorter paddle because you're going to be lower in the water. Those lower volume boards means you're going to be sitting in the water a little bit lower. Again, the same goes if you have a bit more volume in your board and you're standing up a bit higher than the water, you might opt for a little bit longer paddle so you can get that reach down into the water. Paddle stiffness as well is going to play a big part in your longboard SUP surfing. A paddle is going to be unique to you and you need to make sure it's going to suit your style of surfing. Generally, when we longboard SUP surf, we're going to opt for a little bit stiffer shaft and a little bit smaller blade. What this is going to do is going to allow us to do quick, short, sharp bursts with our paddle stroke as we're catching our wave. However, the longboard SUPs already carry a lot of glide, so sometimes you don't need those stiffer, smaller blades because the board already has the glide and speed. So you can opt for a slightly softer shaft and a slightly bigger blade. If you're a bigger person, you're going to want a stiffer shaft with a bigger blade to give you that power into the wave. A slightly smaller person, you're probably going to opt for a softer shaft with a little bit smaller blade. The size of the blade does relate to how much you use your arms and shoulders as well. A bigger blade is going to put more strain on your shoulders and your back as you pull it through the water. So just remember that a bigger blade may help you get more power, but it may overpower your muscles. Also, when you're riding a wave with your paddle, you want to make sure that the blade is quite small, because again, you're going to be switching it from side to side, lifting it up out of the water to do your turns. Generally stick to what you're used to out in the waves. If you already use a softer shaft, then you may find this is going to be better for you. Let's move on to talk about leashes and the length you might want to complement the size of your board. Generally, when you're SUP surfing, you're going to want a leash that's roughly the same size as your board. This way, you're not going to have a leash that's too long and you're going to get tripped up. And if you have a leash that's too short, you may not be able to get to the nose if you are thinking of nose riding. It's also a safety factor to have a leash that's about the same size as your board. If you have a 10-foot board, you want a 10-foot leash. If you have a 9-foot board, you want a 9-foot leash. If you have a board that sits somewhere between that 9-foot and 10-foot range, you may want to opt for going for a 10-foot leash if you're thinking of nose riding. Just because if that leash isn't long enough, you're not going to be able to get your feet up to the nose. So do remember that. Obviously, having the right length leash for your board is a safety factor. If you go for a leash that's shorter than your board, it does have that tendency to spring back a lot quicker. If you fall off a wave and you're underwater, the leash should be pulled by the board and tightened, and when it springs back, it has a shorter distance to come back. So when you are coming up for that breath, chances are your board may be above your head. If the leash is longer, it's going to stretch further away from you, potential to hit someone else, but it's also a pain to get back to you because you're going to be pulling on the leash to get it back to you all the time. Remember, if you have a 10-foot board and a 10-foot leash, that's 20 feet of length that you have to control out in the water. Anything within a 20-foot radius could come into contact with the board, so just remember to choose your surfing area wisely and remember to kick your board away from people. The leash thickness also plays a part in our equipment. The thicker the leash, obviously the stronger it's going to be, but it will create more drag when you're SUP surfing. If you're looking for speed down the line, you may opt for a leash with less thickness, around 7mm or 9mm thick. A 10mm leash is usually good for those waves that have a bit more power to them, a little bit bigger, and if you're using a bigger board as well. But remember, if you're going for a thinner leash, it may have the tendency to break a lot more because we are riding big boards that will get pulled against us. Fins also play a large part in how your longboard SUP is going to react out in the water. We've covered the fins in a number of videos out on SUPboarder, so make sure you go and check those out, and I'll link them in the description below. Using a single large fin will turn from the tail and create a more of a pivot turn. It will be slightly faster down the line as this one fin has less drag. So this is really good for gliding and getting speed through sections. It can also be linked to better nose riding if you use a big single fin for hold in the wave face as well. But remember, you will have to step back to the tail to be able to pivot and turn the single fin around. 2+1 setups or thrusters are going to give the board more performance when surfing. It will create more of an arc when turning, so it will give the board more of a carving feel. Quad fins or forefins can also be used on boards to give that fast feeling down the line, whilst keeping the board loose through turns. Depending on how you want the board to feel is the way you will set up your board with your fins. If you want more of a gliding, pivoting feel on your board, you're going to opt for that single fin in the tail. If you want more of a carving, more performance, you're going to opt for that thruster or that quad setup as well. Just do remember though that you want those fins to be slightly larger because the boards are quite big and you're going to need that hold in the wave face. A single fin, you could go for a fin that's around 9 inches or a little bit bigger if you like as well. And for the thrusters, make sure you choose a large fin or extra large fin from the range. We really hope you enjoyed this equipment video in our Longboard SUP series and that it helps you get out there on the water on your longboard SUP and enjoy the waves. Please feel free to leave any comments below. Happy to answer any questions you may have. We're also really stoked to hear from you and what equipment you might be riding at home. Thank you for watching this SUPboarder video, and we'll see you on another one very soon.